My name is Natalie, and my sister once told me my emergency fund was safe while I stood at a grocery checkout with a declined card. 2 days earlier, that money had been withdrawn in person. If you've ever had family cross a financial line, tell me your story in the comments. The shift ran late, the kind that leaves receipts crumpled in pockets and dinner reduced to whatever fits a basket. The neighborhood grocery was still bright, familiar, efficient. A few staples went onto the belt. Weekend math ran on autopilot. Nothing dramatic, just numbers behaving. The terminal beeped and stopped. "Try again," the cashier said. The card went through once more. Same result. The screen flashed a polite refusal that felt oddly formal for a Tuesday night. While people queued behind me, the bank app opened. The emergency fund line sat at 0. Not low, empty. I stepped aside, called the bank, and listened to the recorded voice promise help. A representative picked up and confirmed a cash withdrawal at our usual branch. 2 days earlier, in person, amount exact, time-stamped. "That wasn't me," I said. She paused, then repeated the details, slower, like reading a weather report to someone already wet. Outside, bags light, phone still warm, a text went out to Melissa. "Did you touch my emergency fund?" The reply came fast. "No, don't start this." Another message followed before I could type. "Please don't make this a thing right now." The call with the bank stayed open. I asked for more information. She explained policy, limits, the difference between online transfers and teller withdrawals. It sounded like a script built to keep voices even. Somewhere in there, she mentioned the transaction time. It landed with a thud because it lined up with Melissa's rare weekday off. That detail stuck, uninvited. A memory nudged in. Years ago, a paper signed during a rush, a limited authorization, emergency only. We had called it practical. It had never been revoked. Back inside, the customer service line for card replacements moved slowly. The wall behind the counter carried a framed promise in corporate blue. "Your money, protected." The humor wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. The cashier returned my declined items with a neutral smile. A new card request went through. The bank rep added that branches retained footage for a limited window. The sentence arrived casually, as if noting business hours. "Is there anything else I can help you with?" she asked. "Yes," I said, then didn't finish. The words hadn't chosen an order yet. Another text from Melissa popped up. "Why are you doing this?" I typed, erased, typed again. "I'm talking to the bank." Her response arrived before the period dried. "You always worry about money. It's family." The rep cleared her throat, waiting. I asked for the next steps. She listed forms, verification, timing. The call time crept. My phone buzzed again. "Please don't call anyone." Standing near the exit, card replacement ticket in hand, I watched the automatic doors open and close. The bank's hold music faded back in as my thumb hit redial, and the phone vibrated once more while the line connected. The morning after the grocery store, plans unraveled quickly. An appointment that relied on my emergency fund had to be postponed, followed by a call to my manager explaining why I needed to step away mid-shift. The explanation stayed factual. Money issue, bank problem, temporary. It still landed with a pause on the other end. By noon, my parents called. "Melissa said you accused her of something serious," my mother said. "She would never do that," my father added, almost overlapping. The phrasing mattered. Accused. Serious. Never. It was already a verdict. I said the bank confirmed a withdrawal. I said it happened at the branch. I said it wasn't me. The response came back, unchanged. "Your sister was helping with paperwork," my mother said. "She's always taking care of things," my father said. Melissa didn't need to be on the call to be present. Her version traveled well. According to her, she'd only held documents so nothing got lost. According to her, stress made me jumpy. According to her, this was another example of worrying too much. Family group texts followed. One aunt sent a heart emoji and suggested letting it go for the sake of peace. A cousin wrote privately that money made people weird and that forgiveness went a long way. At dinner that night, eyes slid away from me and landed comfortably on Melissa. She smiled, tired but composed, the way people do when they've been wronged by a misunderstanding. Work felt narrower. Every errand did, too. Each decision carried the same echo. Don't escalate. Don't make things uncomfortable. Don't be that person. The version of me being discussed sounded unfamiliar and oddly convenient. The next afternoon, a coffee break turned into a meeting with Daniel Ortiz. He listened without nodding, without finishing sentences for me. When I stopped talking, he asked one question. "Do you have anything from the bank that isn't verbal?" "No," I said. "Then start there." There was no pep talk, no reassurance, just a direction. He mentioned transaction logs, timestamps, and the difference between online activity and teller withdrawals. The point was clear without emphasis. Don't argue feelings, he said. Argue records. Back at my desk, the bank's number sat in recent calls like a dare. I dialed. After the usual steps, a representative confirmed what I already knew and added a detail that tightened everything. The withdrawal wasn't an ATM event. It wasn't an app glitch. It was done face-to-face during business hours. "That narrows it," she said. The phrase felt clinical, almost helpful. She explained the process for disputing in-person withdrawals and listed what documentation could be requested. The tone stayed neutral throughout, even when the answer was no. "Thank you for your patience," she said at the end, as if patience had been optional. Melissa called minutes later. "Why are you calling the bank again?" she asked. "This doesn't need to get messy." "I'm checking facts," I said. "Facts don't change what family is," she replied. Another message arrived before I could respond. Mom's really upset. Dinner invitations stopped coming. Conversations ended faster. The story had settled, and it didn't include me as the reasonable one. A few people advised dropping it. Others asked if stress from work was getting to me. No one asked what the bank said. That evening, an email arrived from the branch manager. It confirmed an in-person appointment for the following day and included a reminder about retention periods for branch records. The language was polite, precise, and limited by policy. I forwarded it to Daniel. "Go," he wrote back. The branch sat a few blocks from the bus stop, a place I'd passed 100 times without noticing. The waiting area moved on a schedule that felt separate from the street outside. Forms slid across counters, pens went missing and reappeared. People glanced up when their names were called. A service representative waved me forward and asked for identification. The tone stayed even as she pulled up the account and reviewed the dispute notes. She confirmed the date and time again, then lowered her voice the way people do when policy limits the next sentence. "There is recorded video at the teller stations for that day," she said. "It matches the transaction window." Access wasn't automatic. She explained the steps, the approvals, and what would trigger a release. A formal request, a defined purpose, a timeline. None of it sounded dramatic. All of it sounded final. She added that in-person withdrawals carry fewer electronic breadcrumbs than online activity, which was why these records mattered. A supervisor would need to approve any review, and only within a set retention period. The words landed carefully, arranged to keep expectations realistic. While she spoke, a line from Melissa replayed with new weight. 2 nights earlier, during a rushed call, she'd said she might swing by the bank since it was convenient. The phrase had passed as filler. Standing there, it felt placed. My phone vibrated on the counter. Melissa's name lit the screen. I silenced it. "Retention isn't indefinite," the representative added. "There's a window." Another vibration. Then another. The call log stacked itself without apology. A man 2 seats down argued about a fee. Someone else asked about overdraft protection. The room absorbed complaints without reacting. It was built for this. I asked what it would take to preserve the recording. She slid a document forward and pointed to a paragraph halfway down. "This keeps it from being overwritten," she said. "You'll need to sign." She also noted that requests like this often came with questions from family members and advised keeping communication centralized. The suggestion wasn't judgmental, it was practical. Before the pen hit paper, the phone rang again. I answered. "Why are you doing this?" Melissa asked. "You're pulling people into a family issue." "I'm asking the bank what happened," I said. She sighed, long and practiced. "Mom doesn't need this stress." "You always go straight to worst case." "I'm following the process," I said. "That's not how family works," she replied. The call ended without a goodbye. A text followed, then another. Each one framed concern as accusation, urgency as care. The pen moved. My name settled into the line. Across the room, an electronic board cycled through service messages. One line paused longer than the rest. "Security is our priority." The timing didn't ask for laughter. It got a breath instead. The representative copied the form and outlined next steps. A request would be logged, a manager would review it, notification would follow. She reminded me that staff could not discuss the contents with third parties and that any further questions should be routed through official channels. She handed back my ID and thanked me for coming in. A notification from work appeared, asking whether I could confirm availability later in the week. The message stayed professional, distant, and timed badly. A quick reply went out explaining I had a bank appointment running long. The reply earned a single checkmark. Another message followed, asking for an update by end of day. Outside, the group chat buzzed. An uncle wrote that involving the bank felt aggressive. A cousin asked why strangers needed to see family business. Melissa replied first, explaining how hurt she was by the implication and how careful she'd been with everyone's paperwork. Several people reacted with thumbs up. A few stayed silent. I typed once and erased it, then typed again. "I'm confirming what the bank has," the message read. "I'll share results." The response was immediate. "This is unnecessary," my mother wrote. "Please stop." Melissa called again. I let it ring. The meeting was scheduled before the bank finished anything. A group text set the time and place framed as concern. Everyone was expected to be there. The request came with instructions to keep it calm and private, as if that could be arranged by wording alone. Chairs were pulled into a circle. Coffee sat untouched. No one asked how the bank appointment went. The goal had already shifted. "We need this to stop," my mother said. "This back and forth isn't healthy." Melissa sat across from me, hands folded, eyes red enough to suggest a long night. She didn't look my way until the room settled. "Natalie's been under a lot of pressure," she said. "Money stress does that." The phrasing landed smoothly. Heads nodded. "That's not what happened," I said. "The bank confirmed." She interrupted without raising her voice. "This is what I mean," Melissa said. "She's spiraling." My father cleared his throat. "Accusing your sister of theft is serious," he said. "We raised you better." I repeated the facts, dates, amounts, in person. The words sounded smaller each time they were said. Melissa reached into her bag and placed a folder on the table. The sound cut through the room. "I didn't want to bring this up," she said, "but I think it matters." She slid a document forward. It was familiar, the authorization. My signature sat where it had always been. "This gave me permission," she said. "Emergency access." "That was limited," I said, "and it wasn't for this." "It doesn't say that," she replied. "It says authorized." The page passed hands. People leaned in. The paper did what explanations couldn't. "So you allowed it," my mother said. "For emergencies," I said. Melissa shook her head gently. "This is exactly what I'm talking about," she said. "She rewrites things when she's stressed." A decision formed without discussion. I was asked to step back from any shared financial planning. Accounts would be reviewed by someone else. Decisions would be made without me until things felt stable again. "It's temporary," my father said, "until trust is restored." Trust had already been assigned. Phones stayed down. Eyes stayed polite. No one asked to see anything from the bank. The folder remained in the center like a conclusion. Afterward, Daniel stood with me in the kitchen. He didn't argue with anyone. He didn't try to negotiate. "This isn't about a misunderstanding anymore," he said. "It's a pattern." "What kind?" I asked. "Control," he said. "Whoever holds the access sets the story." There wasn't a fix to offer, only a name for what was happening. When I went back into the room, Melissa was explaining how hard this had been for her, how much she'd done to keep things organized, how hurt she felt by the suspicion. People thanked her for stepping up. Someone suggested dinner plans. Another mentioned work schedules. The meeting dissolved into logistics. I gathered my coat. No one stopped me. At the door, my mother called my name. "Please let this go," she said, "for everyone." I nodded without answering and stepped into the hallway. The phone vibrated. An email notification from the bank sat at the top of the screen. The subject line referenced my request number. The message preview cut off mid-sentence. Walking toward the exit, I opened it, thumb hovering as the doors swung and the rest of the sentence loaded. The door closed behind me, and the apartment held exactly what I brought into it. Shoes by the entry, mail stacked where it always landed. Nothing dramatic waited. The meeting had ended, but its decisions followed me home without asking. A jacket went over the chair. Keys hit the counter. The phone stayed in my hand longer than necessary, screen dimming and lighting back up with notifications that didn't change anything. No one was arguing anymore. No one was explaining. The circle had closed without me. The authorization paperwork sat in a folder I hadn't opened in years. It came out now, laid flat, read line by line. The language was plain. Permission granted. Conditions implied, not enforced. It was practical once. It had also been easy, too easy. Trust had replaced structure. Avoidance had replaced boundaries. Silence had done the rest. That pattern showed up everywhere once it was named. Letting things slide to keep dinners pleasant. Saying yes because no would take energy. Assuming shared values made safeguards unnecessary. The family version of being low maintenance had always been rewarded. It also meant nothing stayed protected for long. The phone rang. Daniel's name appeared without warning. "I heard about the meeting," he said. "They decided without waiting," I said. "That tracks." There was no sympathy in his voice, just recognition. "The bank approved a hold," he continued. "The recording won't be overwritten." The sentence didn't fix anything, but it mattered. "Good," I said. "If you want this accepted," he added, "it won't happen in a branch office." "What do you mean?" "People don't change their minds in neutral spaces," he said. "They change them where the story already lives." The advice wasn't comforting, it was precise. We talked logistics, timing, what could be shared and how. The call stayed focused. When it ended, the room felt smaller but clearer. Dinner was forgotten. A glass of water replaced it. The clock moved without checking in. Messages from family slowed, then stopped, as if the situation had been categorized and filed away. The goal shifted, somewhere between the couch and the kitchen. Proving innocence no longer held appeal. Winning an argument felt irrelevant. What mattered was placing facts where they couldn't be reframed mid-sentence. That meant accepting a cost. The role I'd filled, the agreeable one, the reasonable one, wasn't compatible with what came next. There wouldn't be a version where everyone felt comfortable afterward. The phone buzzed again. A text from Melissa sat unanswered in the preview. "Can we please talk like adults?" It stayed there. Another message followed. "This is hurting Mom." The words didn't ask for information. They asked for compliance. A message draft opened, then closed. The group chat waited. The invitation was short. "We need one more meeting. I'll bring confirmation from the bank." No explanation followed, no justification. The message sent without decoration. The responses arrived quickly. Concern, resistance, a request to postpone. Someone suggested letting things cool off. Another warned against dragging this out. The phone flipped face down on the table. For the first time since the grocery store, nothing else was required in that moment. No replies, no clarifications. The decision had already been made, and carried through action instead of defense. The folder went back into the drawer. The lights stayed on. The apartment didn't change. The night moved forward anyway. Across the room, the phone vibrated once more, muted against the wood, as the next conversation lined itself up, whether anyone was ready for it or not. The bank called the next morning, not with answers, but with context. A supervisor walked through the request status and asked whether I was aware of other transactions tied to similar authorizations. The question sounded routine until it wasn't. "There's a pattern," she said, "not just on your account." The explanation stayed within policy. She couldn't disclose names without formal requests, but she could describe behavior. Temporary access granted. Funds moved in person, justified as help, reversed later, or forgotten entirely. The words landed one after another, each removing the possibility that this had been a one-off. Melissa hadn't improvised. She'd repeated something that worked. After the call, details rearranged themselves without asking permission. Her habit of volunteering to handle forms, the way documents always ended up with her first, how often she said, "I'll take care of it," followed by, "I don't remember," when questions came back. Those weren't gaps, they were buffers. Daniel met me at a cafe near his office. The conversation stayed low-key, all practical angles and options. "She controls access," he said. "Then she controls memory." That phrasing stuck. Messages from family continued, framed as updates. Melissa's lawyer had been contacted. A formal letter arrived by email before lunch, neatly formatted and calm in tone. It accused me of making defamatory statements and warned against sharing private banking information. The signature belonged to someone with a downtown address and credentials listed in a footer that took up half the page. The letter didn't deny the withdrawal. It questioned my right to discuss it. Family reaction followed quickly. Screenshots circulated. The existence of legal representation shifted the mood. Several people asked why I'd pushed things this far. Others said lawyers meant seriousness, and seriousness meant guilt somewhere. Melissa called once, then stopped. A text arrived instead. "My attorney says this is getting out of hand." The message ended there, letting the implication finish itself. The bank clarified another limit later that afternoon. The recording couldn't be shared casually. It required purpose, process, and setting. Public distribution was out of the question. Private review depended on circumstances. The language was careful, designed to prevent misuse rather than encourage clarity. The evidence existed. Access to it did not. That gap mattered. The realization didn't come with panic. It arrived as a correction. This wasn't about reclaiming money. It was about reclaiming who decided what counted as truth. For years, that role had defaulted to whoever spoke first and held the paperwork. Everyone else adjusted. Dinner plans were canceled again. Work emails stacked. A note from my manager asked whether I needed to take personal time. The question was neutral, but the option carried weight. Daniel called once more. "Don't react to the letter," he said. "It's meant to freeze you." "What about the meeting?" I asked. "Keep it," he said. "Change the terms." The group chat lit up that evening. My mother asked if legal threats were necessary. An uncle suggested mediation. Someone else said this should have stayed between sisters. No one mentioned the bank. The letter from the attorney stayed open on my phone longer than it should have. It listed consequences without naming actions. It relied on fear rather than facts. That was familiar territory. I replied once to the group. "The meeting is still on," the message said. "I'll bring confirmation." There were objections, requests to postpone, a suggestion to let lawyers handle it. Silence followed, heavy and incomplete. The folder from the bank sat on the table, forms organized, emails printed. Nothing flashy, just records. Melissa's text arrived late. "Please don't embarrass me." The phrasing was careful. It didn't ask for accuracy. It asked for restraint. I didn't respond. The calendar alert chimed for the meeting time. The location hadn't changed. Everyone would be there. So would expectations. The email from Melissa's lawyer stayed open as well, unread again from the top. It sat next to the bank confirmation number, two narratives, waiting for a room to decide between them. Everyone arrived early, as if punctuality might soften what was coming. Coats piled onto the same chair they always used. Someone adjusted the thermostat. The house absorbed familiar movements without reacting. I took the seat closest to the end of the table and set my folder down. No one commented on it. Melissa chose the opposite side, posture straight, phone face down, expression already set to concerned patience. My mother opened with logistics. "Let's keep this respectful," she said. "No interruptions." I nodded and didn't add anything else. "I brought a confirmation from the bank," I said. "It's something everyone needs to see." There were looks exchanged, brief and uneasy. No one stopped me. The first document came out cleanly, placed flat so it faced the group. "This shows the withdrawal," I said. "Date, time, location." Melissa leaned forward before anyone else could read. "You're misreading that," she said. "That doesn't mean what you think it does." I didn't respond. The page stayed where it was. "This was done in person," I added, "at the branch." "That still doesn't prove anything," she said. "I had authorization." She reached for her bag, already prepared, and slid the old paper across again. The same one. The familiar one. "You signed this," Melissa said. "You allowed access." Heads turned toward me, waiting. "That was for emergencies," I said, "and it didn't include this." "That's your interpretation," she replied. "The paper is clear." The second page came out next. "This is confirmation from the bank," I said. "It states the withdrawal was handled at the counter." Melissa exhaled slowly, like someone managing frustration. "This is what I mean," she said. "She takes things and builds a story." I opened the folder one last time. "There's one more thing," I said. The device connected without ceremony. The confirmation loaded, labeled, dated. The image showed the counter. The person at it didn't need an introduction. Melissa didn't speak. My father leaned forward. "That's you," he said. The room went still in a way that didn't invite commentary. Melissa stared at the screen, then away from it, then back again as if repetition might change the order of events. "That doesn't show intent," she said finally. "You don't know the context." My mother didn't look at me. "Melissa," she said, "explain." Silence stretched, heavy but brief. The phone on the table vibrated. A notification flashed across the screen before Melissa could reach for it. A bank alert. The sound cut through the moment cleanly. No one laughed. No one needed to. "That's private," Melissa said. "You shouldn't be sharing this." "It was shared here," I said, "for this purpose." The words landed without force. They didn't need it. My father pushed the authorization paper aside. "You said you didn't touch the money," he said. Melissa's mouth opened, then closed. "I was helping," she said. "It was temporary." "You said it didn't happen," my mother said. The difference mattered now. Questions followed, overlapping at first, then slowing as answers failed to line up. The folder stayed open. The screen stayed on. No one reached for it again. I stood. "That's all I brought," I said. There was nothing else to add. The room handled the rest on its own. My parents turned toward Melissa, voices low but firm. I stepped back from the table, chair sliding just enough to signal distance. Behind me, the discussion sharpened, names replaced by actions, tone replaced by facts. I didn't join it. The folder went back under my arm. The screen went dark. At the doorway, my mother called my name once, not to stop me, but to acknowledge the shift. I paused long enough to meet her eyes, then moved toward the hall as voices continued without me, the explanation finally being asked from the person who'd practiced avoiding it. The money came back without ceremony. A transfer receipt was printed at the kitchen table while everyone watched, the amount matching down to the cent. Melissa sat rigid, hands folded, eyes fixed on the paper, as if it might change on a second look. No one spoke until the confirmation number appeared. "That's it," my father said. "It's returned." The sentence didn't soften anything. It marked a boundary. Rules followed. New ones. Access removed. Shared accounts locked down. Oversight assigned to someone else. Melissa didn't argue this time. She nodded once, jaw tight, absorbing the list as if it were a weather forecast she couldn't cancel. My mother didn't ask me to forgive her. She didn't ask Melissa to apologize either. We wish this hadn't gone this far, she said. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't a request. It landed exactly where it was meant to. The meeting ended early, chairs slid back, coats were collected. No one suggested staying for dinner. Melissa left without looking at me, phone pressed to her ear before the door closed behind her. Outside, the air felt unchanged. Traffic moved, neighbors passed. The world didn't register the correction that had just happened. The email arrived that evening. Thank you for your patience. The subject line confirmed closure of the dispute and completion of the review. The language stayed neutral, efficient, final. I read it once, then again, then forwarded it to a personal folder. The folder name was simple: Resolved. Card access changed next, passwords updated, authorizations revoked. Each step came with its own confirmation screen, its own reminder that these actions were overdue but allowed. The process didn't ask for justification. It didn't ask how it felt. It just worked. A final call to the bank closed the loop. The representative confirmed everything was separated and advised keeping records for future reference. Is there anything else I can help you with? She asked. No, I said. That covers it. The line disconnected cleanly. That night, the apartment looked the same as it always had. The folder from the bank went into a drawer that held old warranties and instruction manuals. It fit neatly, like it had been waiting for that space. Lights stayed on while dinner reheated. The television remained off. The phone rested on the counter, face up this time. A message from Daniel came through. Glad it's done. Me too, I replied. No follow-up was needed. Another message appeared from a family group chat that had gone quiet for days. Someone shared a photo of a pet. Someone else commented on the weather. The thread moved on without mentioning money. Melissa didn't write. Later, as the night settled into its slower rhythm, the phone vibrated once more. A single message sat unopened on the screen. The name attached to it didn't matter. It could wait. The lights went off, one by one. The apartment fell into shadow. The phone screen dimmed as it was set down. The unread message still there, waiting for a response that wasn't coming tonight.